Hey everyone, this is Kenji, and we're gonna make some kosher dill pickles. So it's really simple. This is a lacto-fermented pickle, so it's different from a pickle. You know, you might have made in the past vinegar brine pickles, where you basically heat up a vinegar and salt, flavored vinegar and salt solution, and then pour it over cucumbers or whatever vegetable you're using. This is a little different. So this one, we're using basically nothing but salt and water, and we're using salt, water, and bacteria, the bacteria that's sort of naturally present on the pickles. And that's going to ferment the pickles and give them a sour flavor on their own. It just takes a little bit of time. You don't really need any special equipment for this, but well, let's get started. I'll show you. So first thing you want to do is get a container and a scale. And what we're looking to do here is create an environment that's sort of inhospitable to everything except for the bacteria that we want to act on the pickles. So that's the lactobacillus. And so what we're doing is we're going to create a brine, a 3% brine. So that is, for all the water content in here, we're going to add 3% salt. And that includes the weight of the cucumbers. So the cucumbers are about 95% water. So we're going to factor that in. We're just going to consider them to be about 100% water, then round down a little bit. Sorry, forgot. First thing I'm going to do is actually just cut off the very ends of the cucumbers. That helps a little bit with the fermentation process. Some people also say that it keeps the cucumbers from getting too soft as they brine. I've tested this side by side and I haven't found any difference at all. But what I do is I add a little bit of calcium chloride to prevent the cucumbers from getting soft, which is something that you can easily do. You can find it either as there's a product called Pickle Crisp, which is basically just calcium chloride, or you can, I get mine from a site called Modernist Pantry, or you can, just go on any kind of online shopping platform and type in calcium chloride and you'll find it. It's pretty easy, pretty common. Another thing some people do is add tea leaves, because the tannins supposedly keep the pickles crisp. I've also not found that to be particularly effective. Oops. Let's start this over. All right, so, and these are pickling cucumbers, Kirby cucumbers, so different from like American cucumbers or English cucumbers, which tend to be a lot waterier and a little softer. All right, so 1100, and what we're going to do is now we're going to add water to there. Enough water to cover, cold water. Oh, this is some ricotta I made this morning, leftover. So if you ever find that, milk as it starts to go bad, it gets more and more acidic, and then once it gets below a pH of 4.7 or so, it'll spontaneously curdle even at fridge temperature. But that curdling will happen at a higher pH, a slightly less acidic pH when you heat it. So if you ever find that your milk looks okay in the fridge, but curdles when you say add it to your coffee or tea from the heat and the extra acid in there, and it's about to go off and you don't really want to drink it, what you can do is just put it in a pot on the stovetop, gently heat it while stirring it, and eventually as it reaches around 160, 170 degrees or so, the curds will all separate out, and then you can just strain them in a fine mesh strainer over the sink or over a bowl if you want to save the whey for something else, and that is ricotta. Well, not technically true ricotta, but it's what we refer to as ricotta these days, and it's delicious. This one I just added a little bit of lemon zest. I stirred in some yogurt, a little bit of sugar, and we ate it with our waffles. All right, so we have about 3,000 grams total, water plus cucumber. So that means we want to add 3% salt. So 3% of 3,000 is 90. So I'm gonna go add about 85 grams of salt to account for the fact that the cucumbers are not fully water. So 85 grams of salt in here. Close enough. And then we have about 3.5 quarts of liquid. So to this, I'm going to add calcium chloride. So calcium chloride, you want to add about, it comes in these little, every source I've found, it comes in these little sort of spherical balls. They're too light to measure without like a real, like a jeweler's scale or a drug dealer's scale. So what I do for these, I just do it by volume. So I add about a quarter teaspoon per quart of water. So this is, let's say, minus the cucumbers, and this one, yeah, so let's see, 1, 2, 3 plus a little bit. You don't have to be too accurate with that. And what that does is it strengthens the pectin bonds in the cucumber and keeps them from getting soft. All right, so now the other ingredients, there's only a few ingredients here. I'm using bay leaves. These are Indian bay leaves. You can use Turkish bay, doesn't really matter. They have a slightly different flavor. Black peppercorns, as much or as little as you want. And then fresh dill. So I'm gonna add like about this much, a little bunch of dill. And then finally, some garlic. Whoop. I'm gonna drop the garlic all over the ground. Let me rinse this off real quick. Oh, there, that's what you want. Garlic Florentine. And this we're just gonna smash. Toss it in there. Skins are fine. They're really for flavor. You're not gonna be eating any of this garlic. I mean, you can if you want, I suppose. But I'm probably not gonna be eating any of it. And there you go. So now that we have all the ingredients in there, give it a little stir with our hands to get that salt sort of mostly dissolved. It'll continue to dissolve as it sits. Now, so if you were to work, if you don't have a special pickling container, the best way to do this is to now take a bag. I'm using the silicone bag, but you can use a zipper lock bag, and pretend that what I'm putting in here is actual brine. So if you're just going to use a regular container like this, make more brine than you need, and then take some of that brine, put it into a bag like this, seal the bag while getting out as much air as possible. So kind of you pinch off most of it, and you kind of lay it down slowly until the water gets right to the edge, and then you seal it off. And then you can place it right on top like this. And what that does is it keeps everything completely submerged, because you don't want any exposure to oxygen here. All right, that's what you want to do. So just like that. And the reason you would fill this with brine as opposed to just plain water is because just in case the bag pops a leak, you want to make sure that you're not diluting the brine with plain water. So this is what I would do if I was just going to do it in a container like this. Just set your pickles up like that, and then you set them aside in a cool spot for well, as long as you want. It'll take a week or 2 weeks, but I don't need to do this because I have this guy, which is it's a plastic pickling container. These are manufactured actually for Korean style pickles. People make kimchi and sauerkraut in here. Comes from a site called Crazy Korean Cooking. I will put a link to it in the description. But these are great. So they have this inner lid with with a gasket around it and a little air vent here. And so what you do is you get your ingredients in there. Oops, let's make sure all that salt goes in. Okay. Got all the ingredients in there. And you take this top, you keep the lid off, you keep the vent off, and you push it down, and you push it down just until brine starts to bubble over the top. You let that little inner thing fill with a tiny bit of brine to make sure that if there is a leak, it doesn't suck air in. Then you seal it off, and that's that. And then we put this cover on it. And now I'm just going to let this sit under my desk now for 2 weeks. And then I'll check on it after a week to see how they're doing, and I'll probably take one, because after about a week you'll get half sour pickles, half sour dills. And in about 2 weeks you get full sour dills. And if you let it go longer than that, you get what I made last year, which is dill pickles that I left under my desk for 2 months because I forgot about them. And they were still totally fine, very salty, but still totally fine. I actually took that whole container, put it in the fridge, and left it there for a further year because I was kind of scared to open it. And then I just opened it a few days ago. And those pickles were still good. Here, I'll show them to you, in fact. Oh, where are those pickles? Those pickles are back here. I transferred them to these mason jars. So what you'll see is that the liquid will start to get cloudy, like this. And that is a good sign. That's nothing bad. That's a good sign. If you start to see mold on top, that's not necessarily the end of the world. A little bit of mold is fine. You can just skim it off with a skimmer if you see it. But look, yeah, these pickles, they were sitting for 60 days and then for a further several months. I started these almost a year ago now, maybe exactly a year ago because they were last summer. And they're, yeah, still crispy and delicious. All right. I don't know, maybe I'll make a follow-up video to show you the progress of these in a couple weeks, but until then, I will see you later. Bye. All right, so it's been about 2 weeks-ish, maybe a little more, a little less, I can't remember exactly. I think it's about 2 weeks. Oh, Lisa, I'm just talking to the camera, like I do. So I've actually opened this already because my daughter has been curious about it. We checked on it. We've been checking on it every few days and letting out some of the gases that collect in here. And I think we actually ate a couple of the pickles, so there's not going to be as many in here as there were when we started. So if you let it go for about like a week, they're going to be kind of half sour, what we would call half sours. And at this point, after a couple weeks, they're basically full sours. You can let them go much longer if you want to. And so you kind of want to pick them up and feel them. And if they feel, so they shouldn't feel really squishy like that. That's a sign that they've probably started to rot as opposed to just ferment properly. So they should stay nice and firm and crisp. That's what you're looking for. If this is a slice that we pulled out. If they're really squishy, you want to kind of cut them open and check. Well, meanwhile, let's take the ones that are definitely good and put them in some jars here, because then they can go straight in the fridge. And once they're in the fridge, they're going to last for like probably a couple months or so in these jars, and they won't really ferment much more once you got them packed in these jars and into the fridge. They're not going to really ferment much more. So that kind of puts a pause on what's going on the action in here. Oh, I guess we ate quite a few of them. You can also divide up your spices. And now, if you're doing this and you wind up finding that you open it up and it's covered, you know, if there's little spots of mold or little bits of yeast, sort of yeast looks kind of like a kind of pale brown tan colored raft on top. That you can usually just skim off and it's fine. If there's tons of mold, or if the mold is growing on the actual, you know, underneath and on the actual cucumbers, then that's probably a good idea to just start over, call it a loss and start over. But as long as you keep everything clean and you measure the salt properly and you keep the thing sealed and everything submerged, the chances that, you know, I can't remember the last time I had a batch go bad because of mold. So the odds that it's going to happen are very low. Also, this sort of cloudy liquid, that's totally normal. Those are all byproducts of the fermentation, and that's good. This liquid, you can save it and use it to brine chicken. In fact, that's what I'll do. I'll use it to brine some chicken. You can use it to brine meat, like chicken that you're going to fry, and it's delicious. Oh, look at this nifty new corner organizer I got. Watch this. Amazing, huh? That's where I keep my bowls. What's up, Alicia? I'm almost done here. You can keep stomping on your plastic bubbles. I'll be right there, okay? You can keep stomping your plastic bubbles. I'll be right there. Okay, so now I'm just going to seal these up. Let's shove that guy in there. I'm just going to seal these up and into the fridge they go. And the let's check out these ones that have potentially started to rot in a bad way. It's quite squishy. Let's see what they look like inside. Oh yeah, they're real soft. Actually, they're probably all right. They don't look like. They're not crispy, but they definitely don't taste rotten. We'll eat these today, because they're not going to get any better as they sit. We'll eat those with our dinner. All right, so there you go. Homemade New York style kosher dill pickles. Lacto-fermented. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, I will see you next time. Bye.